Whoosh everybody, Utam here. Today we're going to be utilizing Warcraft logs alongside another little handy dandy resource called the threat plotting tool to look at how we can improve on those more threat sensitive fights, in particular Veilstraws. Now what we're looking at here is my internet browser, and as you can see I have two tabs open. First is our BWL log from 722, and the second is the threat plotting tool. I'll have a link to this tool in the description below. What this tool does is basically exactly what its name implies. It looks at an encounter, and for its entire duration it plots every raid member's threat onto an easily readable graph. It's a nice way to have a visual representation of everyone's threat for a given encounter. This is especially handy for a fight like Veil, where DPS should be putting out as much damage as possible without ripping aggro. Now to use the threat plotting tool, all you need to do is copy the URL of the log in question and paste it into the report ID input box. You hit fetch, and then from the drop down box below you'll see a list of all the encounters. We're going to select Veilstraws and hit fetch. Now this may be a bit of an eyesore at first because you're looking at the threat of 40 different raid members. It can be a bit jumbled and hard to read. However, on the right you'll see a list of every raid member. By double clicking on an individual, you'll make it so that only that individual's line is visible on the graph. By single clicking a raid member, you'll make it so that that individual is hidden from the graph. Now that we know how to upload a log into the threat plotting tool and how to make it a bit easier to read as we may need, let's get into the actual analysis of this fight. The first thing that sticks out on this graph is that our tank's threat, Aggro's aggro, is extremely solid. Throughout the entire fight, not only is he maintaining a threat lead, he's actually building it up higher and higher, even throughout execute range. From this alone, we can draw the conclusion that if you've been purposely throttling yourself and holding back, there's really no need, or at least not to the degree that you may be doing so. This graph quite literally shows you the threat cushion, so to speak. So now the name of the game, now that we know we have the threat room to improve, is how to improve. That course is going to vary from class to class. I'm just going to look at myself as a warrior. Now for a moment, I'm going to highlight all the warriors just to show a unique trait to our threat in general as a class. Our threat tends to be a little bit more exponential than others, mainly because of two factors. One being execute, and two being recklessness. This is especially true when recklessness is used during execute range, as it should. You can see this quite clearly when you're looking at my threat line. Now I pop recklessness at 25 seconds into the fight. As you can see, for those first 25 seconds, aggro is constantly building a bigger and bigger lead. After I pop rec at 25, I start to quickly catch up in terms of threat, and by the end, I am dangerously close to ripping aggro. The big takeaway from this means that if I'm looking to improve my DPS, I must time a limited invulnerability potion perfectly. Any increased DPS for me will most likely mean me ripping aggro, so that lip is crucial in ensuring that I don't accidentally not only get myself killed, but most likely others cleaved, if not the whole raid wiped. So step 1 to improving, don't fuck up that lip. Step 2, cooldown uptime. The biggie is recklessness. Now as I said, I popped this 25 seconds into the fight, and it was over 13 seconds later, meaning I missed out on about 1 global of guaranteed crit damage. That's a moderate room for improvement on my end. Next in line would be Death Wish. I popped Death Wish at 21 seconds, meaning I only had it up for 17 out of the possible 30 seconds. That's a huge amount of wasted uptime on my end, and probably the biggest single room for improvement that I can make. Lastly, Diamond Flask. I popped this at the very start of the fight, so 100% uptime there, no issues on that front. Step 3, rotation. Now I had 18 melee attacks, but I only had 1 heroic strike and 1 cleave. Firstly, why the fuck did I use cleave? Shame on me. Secondly, sure, it was out of fear of not wanting to rip aggro, of not using heroic strike more, but as that graph clearly shows, aggro has a solid threat lead for most of that fight, so I could certainly use it more than once. With all that said, and now have a game plan for going into the next week. Don't fuck up that lip, pop Death Wish much sooner, and Heroic Strike more often. Hope everyone was able to take away a little something and enjoyed the video. See you later.